Is everybody logged in, ready to go? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the November Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. We've got a full agenda. We're going to try and get everybody out of here early, so be thorough, but be mindful of your time when visiting with the commission. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during this meeting. This will ensure that commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please be quiet until you're called upon, and when you do speak at one of these two podiums, preferably the middle one, please state your name and address for our records. Before we vote on each item, we will ask if there are any members of the public that wish to speak. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to relay their information to the commission members. Our agenda for today's meeting was located on the PrimeGov website. If you're following along, you can select on the right-hand side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see what's being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting were posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission, so if you brought those today, please keep them at your seat, as we will not and cannot accept and review. Desiree, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Ryman Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Corbin.
Present.
Commissioner Gaines.
Present.
Commissioner Jordan.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Ramey. Chair, we have quorum.
Excellent. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, we're going to ask that anybody who's unfamiliar with this process, please refer to that section. There are 2 items we do like to note specifically regarding the meeting process. That would be certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Regarding certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the certificate of appropriateness is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Regarding appeals to the Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. And that will take us to news from the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie, anything from your perspective we need to move or discuss?
I have nothing to report under that item.
Excellent. We'll go on to accepting of the minutes from the October 5th meeting. As the commission members had a chance to review those minutes, do you have any questions or perhaps a motion to accept or modify?
I will motion to accept the October minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Poore. Please vote in PrimeGov. The minutes were passed unanimously. Katie, anything from Code Enforcement?
Nothing specific to report. As always, the code enforcement report is included in your packet. If anyone has questions about specific items listed there, feel free to reach out to staff for more information.
Thank you. Let's see. Looks like we've got one uncontested request under continuance announcements or requests.
This is a case that was heard at a previous commission meeting and continued to today's meeting. The applicant let staff know that they would need another continuance to prepare the revised materials that were requested the last time, so they've asked to be continued to December 7th.
Perfect.
And we do need a motion and vote on that continuance.
Do we have a motion to continue HPCA 22-00123 to, what is it, December?
December 7th.
So moved.
I think you could just abstain from voting. I don't think you have to leave the, the horseshoe.
As long as you can be partial in voting to continue, you can stay. Let's see. We had a motion from Commissioner Gaines. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov. Except for you, Klaus.
And Desiree, would you be sure and note that he abstained from the vote?
I'm sorry, who was that second?
Commissioner Jordan.
Commissioner Meacham. Oh, there we go.
That continuance was passed 7-1 with Commissioner Ryman Phillip abstaining. We will move on to public hearings. Katie, anything under dilapidated structures, National Register nomination?
No items under either of those categories.
Okay. Looks like we've got, how many cases do we have on the consent? Oh. Okay, we'll move on to we don't have anything on the consent docket today. Missed that. All right, so we'll move on to the cases for individual consideration. Item number D, we've got 6 on the docket today. First one up, HPCA 22-00017 at 500 Northwest 16th Street.
This is in Mesta Park Ward 6, consideration of possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architect, for Darla O'Neill for a certificate of appropriateness to revise item 3, construct a porch to include 11, expand proposed porch elective, 12, install fireplace elective, and 13, install screening elective. This is an application that the commission heard previously and approved the construction of an addition and a smaller porch. The applicant has come back to revise that proposal to expand the size of the porch and shift it over to the west side of the house as well as the rear of the house. Staff did recommend a continuance on these items, with primary concerns just being the increase in size of the porch as well as the change in visibility based on the extension of the porch into the side yard.
Okay. Hi there.
Hello,
You say your name and address for the record?
Holly Hunt, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Here again to discuss. I'm glad that most all of you commissioners were a part of this original approval. It's probably still somewhat fresh in your mind, although I know you see a lot of these applications. So just a little background summary for those of you who aren't familiar. Basically, once the previously approved porch was framed, and I want to again back up to say, just a reminder that we matched the height of the porch columns from the front porch at 10 and a half. Our porch columns are 10-11. Relatively small porch at 11 feet above head just seemed, for lack of a better word, quite dinky to the homeowners. They talked to me about wanting to expand the porch. I definitely told them it would need to come back to the commission, and so we're here. I want us to just focus on it because, you know, reading the staff report, it seems like this is like a major change. Really, it's just expanding by 5'8", shifting that column to the south, and expanding to the west, 11 feet, 12 feet if you count the total depth of the roof. And so I hope that what we can see here is that although the staff report mentions that doesn't need a review from you all, like we've proposed some additional screening from the west along the fence line west of the house, those Nellie Stevens hollies, which are quite tall, as a further way to visibly reduce this addition. Also, the addition is it's very similar to the existing previously approved roof, especially from the east facade, specifically the street elevation from Walker, which I would argue is the only visible side that you will see. It's very minimally different. We expand, sure, but you can see we still have nearly 50 feet of open backyard before the garage. So while this is a relatively large site, so I don't think it'll have that much of an impact, if any. Another thing I want to point out, which is I have a little note on my elevation, front elevation. The grade change is significant along 16th Street. The house is not only lifted above the grade 30 inches, but then we also step down nearly 5 feet to the sidewalk, and then again about a combination of 12 inches to the street view. So With the additional screening that we've provided, I think that we meet the criteria of the guidelines as making an addition in the rear that is very minimally visible. We've attempted everything we could to screen it from 16th Street, as well as, I would say, a lot of the specific findings not only support that we are in the intent of the guidelines, but also that what we're lacking, that's why we did that screening, is to, again, reduce that visibility as much as we can. I also want to point out something we talked about in the original approval. This house is situated at the northeast corner of its building line, exposing its entire historic eastern side yard to the public right-of-way. So again, the fence line starts at the very back of the historic house. So that entire east side yard is exposed. So this house is situated not in the center of its lot like many other houses. It's situated very far, the farthest east it can go. And I think that was intentional by the original home builders as a way to create a larger side yard to the west that was minimally visible and more private from the public right-of-way. That's why we expanded the porch in that direction. So I would love to hear some feedback from you all, but I really feel like this is a relatively minor change, just expanding that covered porch a little bit. Oh, I will also mention that the fireplace being gas, it will not require a chimney, so every bit of that chimney massing, which matches the other chimney previously approved in this application, it will not extend beyond the porch roof whatsoever. So it's all below that roof. So again, from this picture, you can see it won't be visible from the street whatsoever, or public right-of-way, I should say, either, not from the sidewalk, especially once we install that new screening that we are proposing. I think it's not going to be visible whatsoever.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions from commissioners on this particular topic? I think for me personally, I do see a couple of minor things that I think we'd like to change. It feels like the roof line and everything kind of incorporates into the house and it doesn't differentiate the new porch structure
Correct.
from the rest of it.
Correct.
I would like to see some differentiation there if that's at all possible. The other thing I'd like just
Differentiation from the addition? I'm sorry.
from the main structure of the house. The way that it looks like it's all drawn.
I'll let you go on and then
Sure. The way that it looks with the roof line and everything being all incorporated, it looks like it was just a portion of the house. And then the other part for me, not that I necessarily have a huge issue with it, but I think we need to discuss it as a commission, or at least surface it as a commission. But the fireplace and the kind of the jut out of the porch looks like it's now into the side yard, and typically we don't allow that to be built into. So that is at least a small red flag for me that I think we probably ought to.
I would point out that it's
Okay.
not restricted in the guidelines, but
Maybe not appropriate or not typically, yeah, we'll leave that alone. But would love comments on that if there's anybody else that shares those concerns.
I'm in agreement. I think additions are supposed to be behind the house, particularly from the front view. But if it started out at a porch, it's my understanding that staff is, or that y'all have agreed that it's really an addition versus a porch. Is that?
There's an addition.
There's an addition and a porch, but is the
Well-
porch?
There's a previously approved addition that included a porch, and this is an expansion of the previously approved porch. The guidelines include, there's language in the guidelines that says that when a porch or a deck or other landscape feature is permanently attached to the house, we should consider it as an addition.
Right.
When we look at things like the square footage limitations for additions, we look at enclosed space. So that doesn't apply in such a black and white sense to a porch. But as far as compatibility and proportion and location, materials, all of those things come into play on an attached permanent fixture, the same as they would for an addition.
I mean, when it's large like this and has a roof that would be suitable for an addition. I mean, if it was a smaller porch, it was a porch that had some columns, or maybe it had, I don't know. It seems like that we've pretty well stuck to the idea that additions, or, which in this case was with the roof, to me, is similar to an addition, cannot be seen from the front of the house.
I guess in a way, I agree with some of that, and I don't really have an issue personally with the size of the porch or even really the location. I think it's about as, on the least visible corner of the house it could possibly be. I do agree with Commissioner Meacham that the original porch, it kind of made sense to incorporate that same roof. I mean, it's just like a little, almost like it was a pretty small porch, so I
Correct.
kind of see why you might want to make it a little more functional. The only kind of issue I have, and what maybe seems to be a sticking point, is that it feels like part of the house because of the way the roof comes over it. It just feels like the addition basically just not enclosed. So I'm wondering if there's a way, and feel free to disagree with me. I kind of feel the location of the fireplace and the size of the porch is okay. Maybe there's a different way to approach the roof so that, the addition has that hip roof and it's just kind of contained to that. And then maybe the porch has, whether it's a low slope, flat roof, something that kind of distinguishes it from the house. Then you have kind of the addition and then the porch,
Well, I mean, to me, the addition and the porch are one and the same. They are the addition. And I think in the previous approval, we addressed that distinguishing factor as it being a one-story element when the historic home is a two-story element. I know the specific findings talk about this differentiating from the massing and proportionality, which, again, one thing that the staff report doesn't mention, which I found kind of strange, was the guidelines strictly prohibit two-story additions on corner lots. So we went with an addition that was one story. We matched the exact roof and brought it down to a one-story element, matching the existing first-story plate. So to me, that is exactly what the guidelines expect you to do on a corner lot. The porch is a hipped roof that mimics the pitch and proportionality of the existing. So my thinking here was, again, to make it on the least visible side of the house, which to me would mean minimally going to the south and then expanding to the least visible side, which would be the west. And that is, again, due to the grade change from 16th, so that the public right-of-way visibility from Walker is minimally impacted. That was really my goal. For me, not going to a low slope roof or creating some entirely different proportionality, that would be farther departing from the guidelines than what the guidelines allow. So that's why I matched the roof pitch, maintained that exact same, I basically just stretched it. Tried to maintain the same we did maintain the same elevations of the porch beams, the porch columns. Everything that was previously approved is still accurate in this packet. Just expanding that roof to the least visible side.
Could we
was
just
the
get
goal.
some clarity from staff? I think we've had a couple of things referenced here regarding, what may or may not be in compliance with the guidelines. Are we talking about an addition should not be visible from the front of the home, or are we talking about building into the side yard? I realize that in this scenario, it's one and the same, but it's not always one and the same. So which of those is one of those allowed and one of them's not, or?
So as far as the side yard setback, they're fine. They're well off the side property line. What we are talking about is a guideline that says that new additions must be planned so they're constructed to the back of the property or on a non-character defining elevation, preferably not visible from the public right-of-way. So
What I've attempted to do.
yeah, so we look for additions to be at the rear. We have seen some additions that projected slightly out to one side or the other of a house get approved in the past. Usually they've been able to do so in a way that's minimally visible and that was determined for other reasons to be the least impactful location for an addition. So it's not it's not a regulation, it's not a no additions in the side yard, period. It's a guideline.
Yeah, I just think we've already approved so much of the bulk of this project, and we really debated it when we did. I don't really know for me that this change is what is going to like tip this project to suddenly not being historically appropriate anymore. I think that that ship has sailed for me. You know, that was the bigger conversation in the initial application.
The roof you can't,
Oh, go ahead.
the roof you can't really see from the street because it's on top of a hill. It's mildly. I mean, I
Minimal.
can barely see it in the picture. So I don't. I think they've done a good job of the house.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree with, you know, Holly's designs are always great.
Thank you.
That's never
Thanks
the
so much.
question. That's why sometimes it's easy to convince people to do something that I don't think are in the guidelines. When we're talking about the roof, the actual size of the porch is making the roof bigger. So now you want a bigger porch, so now you've got a bigger roof. And so when you're looking at the drawings, in my opinion, I mean, some of it is confusing in that, is it a part of the original house? And the other is, somebody going to come back in the future and say, hey, why don't we just enclose this porch? And now we've got another addition. It seems large for what it is, and particularly, I still go by that, you know, when visible from the front is, I think this is maybe less visible, but it's still a large porch. We've done things where maybe there was a balcony or a flat roof in the back, and so there was a flat balcony that stood out a little bit, but to me, it just seems,
And to that, I would say a further addition or enclosure of this porch would be strictly prohibited by the guidelines. So no application that could come before this commission to enclose that porch would ever be passed. Because we've already met the 750 max addition to the historic home.
in the future, though, I don't think you know what the commission could do. And so we do things like that sometimes by somebody comes in and we do an addition, and then 10 years later, somebody comes in and we do more addition. So
I don't see
that's
you all
not-
getting looser on the interpretation.
Cautious about saying we could impose enforcement in the future. I mean, if you kind of assume that you could do something in the future, then that would kind of, I think, rule out a lot of different things.
It's already a room, basically. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's big enough, the way it's designed, it's actually you can call it a porch, but it's large. It's larger than a lot of other porches. And at one point, Holly, you said you should consider that part of the addition. If you consider it part of the addition, then you're over, you said that a minute ago, that it would be bigger than allowed per square foot. So
It
that's
seems like, no, it seems like per staff, the main issue here is that it extends past the side of the house. Is that correct? Or that it kind of is not
The west
directly
yard.
behind? Yeah. I mean, I almost wonder, for me personally, I think by shifting it over, that might make the roof a little bit more complicated too. I mean, I almost wonder, I mean, I feel like it would meet most of the guidelines or all of the guidelines if it was simply shifted over to extend straight off the back of the house, and then the fireplace could move maybe to a different side. Obviously, if you just shifted it over, that fireplace would be where the back door is. But
If I may, one possible solution to reduce visibility of the fireplace would be to locate the gas fireplace up against the new addition and within this porch, but I still don't think, I think it's apples to apples as far as the visibility issue. Again, we understand that we're creating a visibility issue, but it's the least of the visible sides, and that we've done that very intentionally, placing it on the west side. Again, the layout of this house in a double lot, double corner lot, we are wider than most. An extension of the back porch, which might be allowed by the guidelines to the rear, would be more visible from the public right-of-way. And so we feel like moving it to the west minimally, we're talking about 12 feet, knowing that the grade change makes it very, very minimally visible, plus the addition of the Nellie Stevens hollies, which at mature height are 12 to 14 feet. We really feel like this is the least visible place to put it. My thinking on the massing of the roof and the proportions of the roof was to match the addition, which we've already established is distinguishably different than the historic home. So I
Well, maybe,
feel like
a
this is
question
just an
for-
extension of the further approval.
Yeah,
or future-
question for the commission might be, is having a double lot a unique circumstance that would allow for that to be offset? Because I do give you the fact that it is on the least visible corner of the house. It really isn't, honestly, it's really not that visible. And it is set back pretty far from Walker because it is, as you mentioned, it's already set over from that property line, and it's a double lot, and it's extending into that extra lot inward, not towards the corner. So the fact that it's a double lot, I mean, I think that might, at least for me, it's worth considering maybe if that would be.
I mean, I can certainly get there, and just looking at, hearing the additional information that Holly's provided today, I do believe that it has been placed in the most minimally visible spot. Seeing a little bit of a roof line from, 16th Street, I know it, I don't have a major issue with that, I guess. And I think if you configure it any other way, it becomes even more visibly from Walker. And so I think that they've done a pretty good job of putting it in a place where it's going to be as least visible as possible. I like the fact that the fireplace isn't going to be, towering above, and you can cover that down a little bit too. And based off the information that you've given, I can support an approval if we go that direction.
What
We
is
also
it
need to
that-
hear from citizens as well.
What is it that we're seeking on the fireplace? It looks the staff report is indicating that we would like to see additional information, but I'm not exactly sure what it is we're looking for.
So I think that's the language that's in the continuance motion. It was really revisions to the design, to the placement as directed by the commission,
Okay.
whatever
So
came out of your
basically, if we
discussion.
approve this porch, we're
I think if
eliminating that issue.
we split the items out in case the commission wanted to approve the porch as proposed, but request some change be made to the fireplace, but you could approve both of them together if the commission's comfortable with that.
Okay, I think we need to check in with citizens. Anybody that wish to speak on this particular project? Nothing.
So you do have comments at your seat from the neighborhood association that said they agree with staff recommendation for continuance.
Commissioner Meacham, is there something you wanted to add?
I was going to say, you originally talked about having it distinguishable from the deal. Is there a recommendation there, or
Well,
just,
so
no, we're not?
Holly's comments on historic houses on corners not being able to have two levels, to me, the fact that that the new addition was all a single level, and so is the front porch, that distinguished it enough in my eyes.
I guess my final word would be, I think sometimes, we've seen a lot of things come through to build, and sometimes we're just trying to accommodate the request and make the request as good as it can be, when in reality, in my opinion, it might not should be built. And I don't think that we're here to accommodate what everybody wants to build and try to make it as best as we can. If this was a big pergola and you could see it from the side, we say no to that all the time. We say, no, it has to be behind. This is actually bigger and more permanent than a pergola, and it's visible, whether you can't see it because it's on a hill or whatever. So
Any
anyway,
pergola would be visible from Walker, though. They
so
all
that's
would
what I'm
be,
saying. If it was
so.
just a pergola, a lot of time, most of the time what we're saying, it has to be behind the house. And so this is even bigger than a pergola, and it's not behind the house. So that's what I'm saying, is I feel like sometimes we're trying to make it the best it can be, even though it really is not following the guidelines.
I totally hear that. I guess sometimes I almost, I feel like if it doesn't have a detrimental, in my opinion, a detrimental effect to the guidelines, and there is some kind of unique circumstance that would allow, and in this case, I think the fact that it's a double lot, and the applicant has made efforts to, it's shifted over, even the whole, the whole porch is shifted over halfway on the addition, so it really is shoved over pretty far. To me, I'm happy to accommodate, I don't know, I feel like I don't want to be a roadblock to people improving their properties if
But
there's
we're-
no detrimental.
That's not our
effect.
mission, is to help people improve their properties. And when you look back on one of the comments from staff, it says, it's saying, does it affect the, overall character of the historic district? Well, when we continue to build things bigger and the bigger that you can see, yes, that is going to have an impact on the overall district. And if we continue to let those things happen, then when people walk through the district, they're going to think that the houses are a lot bigger because this is going to look original to the average person. It's going to look like it was part of the original house. I mean, just the layperson is not going to perceive that's different.
If I may just quickly at the end, I think preservation should be pro-improvement. We should be helping people to love their properties, to improve their properties, and do it in a very discerning and thoughtful way with the help of this commission and staff to create things that fit within the guidelines, that aren't strictly prohibited, but are improvements that are discernible, as we've done in this condition, as a way to bring these properties into the future. I think that is what preservation is really about.
That's not our mission. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I'm in total agreement with historic buildings in other places, but our mission is not to bring our historic districts to improve them and make them look different than they
But
did.
it's also not to never make a change to these
No,
properties.
we make changes every day every month we make changes. I'm just saying that there is a cumulative effect after a while.
And I just want to say that I don't think it's not that we don't care about them. It's just, I think when I'm looking at these cases every time, I'm looking at it that I have something in writing that says, this porch expands beyond the width of the historic dwelling. And yeah, we have to look to reason and say, okay, well, what situation forces us to approve this in such a way that we can continue to look at any case that comes next and there's a situation or they want to expand beyond the width and we have to go and say, well, we had a case that came. That's the whole thing. I have to say I'm on the fence of this because it's fantastic, it's wonderful, but it is in writing. It expands beyond the width of the back of the house, and if we approve this one, I'm always like, how do you say no to the next one? And I think that's just where I'm trying to get to, and I'm not quite there yet.
Well, I kind of
The
think we're
wording in-
missing the most obvious point here, just to jump back to what Klaus was saying. I think the double lot is the unique circumstances. The unique circumstance, I could sit here and rattle off 10 examples off the top of my head that are within 3 blocks of this. And obviously, we're not just saying, well, your neighbor has it, so you can have it too. But I do think there is so much precedence for people who have things that are extremely visible from Walker or the East-West Street that, debating a 12-foot extension, while I agree with you that, in theory, the guidelines say we really shouldn't be doing this, but then you drive down 15th Street and you see, pools facing 15th, or you head up Walker and you see a pergola popping over the fence. I just think it's...
To me, that presents a problem because we're not the pretty committee. I mean, nobody ever made us the pretty committee. I mean, we're not here to say that looks great and approve that. And how do you say I'm with John? I mean, after a while, I hesitate then to not give other people permission to do things that we've approved. If we give so many exceptions, I think it's difficult. And then after a while, we might as well just be the pretty committee. Yes, it's really pretty. Let's let you do that. But it doesn't have anything to do with our original mission.
Well, yeah, I think, the committee exists because not everything the guidelines applies to every property. There's unique circumstances. Every project is different, every site is different, and if you also write a set of guidelines that, perfectly match that. So, in my opinion, the committee exists to examine each case that isn't, black and white, that we just approve and, deny. And we examine these, in each situation. So I guess to me, looking at this one specifically and having a double lot, that's a unique circumstance, which I feel comfortable,
Well,
I guess that's where I feel like
I
our
agree
role
with-
as a commission comes in, is
Right.
that, we have to look at everything case by case. And I understand what Commissioner Milner is saying. We don't want to set, we don't want to
Precedent.
set a precedent to make it difficult to execute our mission in the future and to undermine the guidelines and those kind of things. But we also are here to interpret the guidelines on a case-by-case basis, to make decisions that are best for each project, or for each, for the
Right.
district
I,
as a whole.
I totally agree with that, but I think that we should try to avoid saying, well, these things are everywhere already. Then that's the next person's reason for being, people see this and they go, hey, they told me last year I couldn't have an addition that went that big, but if I come back in, so I think it's dangerous to say, I've seen a lot of things already, because we don't know when those occurred, if they got permission, what commission did it, under what circumstances. But I totally agree with Klaus that we should look at it on a case-by-case basis.
I think at the core of it, we have already debated this submission thoroughly, and while you could have convinced me 4 meetings ago that this entire addition was not historically appropriate because it's such a large project, you can't convince me that at this point 12 feet is what's making it not historically appropriate anymore. I mean,
Everybody gets to vote, that's all I gotta say.
Let's put it to a vote then. Do we have a motion?
do we have any public?
Before you all vote, I just want to say, to kind of respond to some comments, that you all, as Klaus stated, you all consider each case on its individual merits. The fact that you approve something here does not set a precedent that binds you to approve the same thing every other place that you see it, because every other place that it comes in is going to have its own unique conditions and unique characteristics. And on the flip side of that, just because something else already exists in the neighborhood, whether it was approved by the commission, whether it was done prior to designation or without a CA, that also doesn't bind you to feel that you have to approve it elsewhere. I think, as you all have discussed, this is a decision about whether or not this has any further adverse effect on the historic character of the property in the district beyond, what's already there, what's already been approved. So that's all.
Perfect. Okay, do we have a motion on this particular case? Would anybody like to make a motion on this particular case?
Does anybody need to speak?
We asked that
Oh, we
earlier.
did?
Nobody stood up.
Okay, well,
Mr. Gaines? Oh, sorry.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I make a motion to approve HPCA 22-00017, 1 and 2,
I think it's 11 and 12.
11 and 12, okay. Yeah, 11 and 12. Just with the specific findings that it is on a double lot, therefore, compared to the rest of the project which was approved, it's not exceptionally large addition.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Gaines, second by Commissioner Corbin. All in favor? No? Vote in prime gov. Okay, that item was passed with a vote of 7 yeas and 1 nay. Thank you. All right.
Don't we still have to do
Did we miss
item 13?
Do we miss 13
So
too? No.
I think 13 we can actually strike because the landscaping does not require review.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 2, HPCA 22-00126 at 621 Northwest 41st Street. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure thing.
While they're signing in, I'll just read off. This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on an application by Colin Fleck, Bacchus Payne Architecture, for Sam Rainbolt, 621 Street LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct addition with back porch elective, 2, alter driveway elective, 3, relocate driveway gate elective, and 4, relocate mechanical equipment elective. This is an addition located entirely at the rear within kind of an inset niche at the back of the house, and then with a porch that wraps around that addition. And then fairly minor modification to the driveway configuration and relocation of the driveway gate. We recommended approval of items 2, 3, and 4 with the condition that they provide adequate screening of the mechanical equipment that appear to be proposed in a location that would be visible from the street. This is an addition that exceeds the allowed square footage as stated in the guidelines. Staff did recommend approval of this with unique circumstances related to the compatibility of the proposed addition and its massing proportions to the historic structure, and based on the generous size of the property. Even with the addition and the porch, they are well under 50% lot coverage. So
Okay, perfect.
Hi.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Colin Fleck, I'm with Box Paint Architecture. Address is 2228 Northwest 45th Street.
Perfect.
And I'm here on behalf of Sam Rainbolt and his wife, the homeowners. And they are seeking to add on to this, to their home in the least intrusive, the most compatible, and as sensitively as possible to the context, to their neighbors, to the rest of the block. It is also a lot and a half, as Katie mentioned. And so we really tried to focus on the form and, like I said before, the context, the historic build pattern, the massing, and to minimize the visibility from the street. We are still underneath the 50% lot coverage, even though we are exceeding the square footage guideline. And I would just say that the homeowner has prioritized harmony over maximization of the lot, and so that is what we are here for today.
Perfect.
We are proposing an addition of conditioned space on the backside. We've inset it from the east and the west boundaries of the existing home. And then we've got a one-story flat roof porch that we feel is appropriate for the style of the existing home that wraps the backside. And we tried to make everything just, nothing under a minimum for as far as square footage sizes and things like that, and that's what resulted in our square footages. So things like clearances in kitchens and on porch for furnitures and things like that. And that's what really drove our sizes of things. Again, not to maximize anything, but just to be reasonable, I think, is what we were after. The addition of the conditioned square footage will be brick to match the existing home. The shingles and the cornice details will all match that as well. So we're trying to keep the historic charm and character of the existing home while still differentiating it with the massing, with the setback, and staying all on the back side of the home.
Okay. Well, as I reviewed this, I felt like it was, staff obviously recommended approval. I felt it was appropriate and compatible. The changes you're making were compatible with the main structure. I thought it was all differentiated pretty well. I didn't see any major problems with it, but I'm curious if there's any other concerns or challenges from other commissioners. Questions, concerns, nothing? Would we support an approval? Okay. Are there any citizens that wish to speak on this particular project? Do we have a motion? This might be the easiest one ever.
I will motion to approve HBCA 22-00126. Let me just jump to the items. Items 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the specific findings and conditions and agreed upon conditions noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved
is
by
that
Commissioner.
with the unique circumstances?
Yes,
Okay.
and I was just reading that at the bottom, and the unique circumstance.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Milner. Please vote in PrimeGov. I'm serious. I think that might have been the easiest one we've ever done.
Hey, we should all
before.
just give
It's
ourselves a round
quite
of applause.
impressive. It passed unanimously. That's wonderful.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right, move on to item number 3, HPCA 22-00143, 41st Street.
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Randy Wonder, Barcosi Construction Incorporated, for Greg Eichner for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remodel addition elective, and 2, replace non-historic windows on rear elevation elective. This is an existing sunroom addition that they propose to convert into, to expand the kitchen into, and they've proposed installation of windows and stucco cladding material. We did have an error in the staff report. We thought that what was proposed was a fiber cement stucco panel. The applicant has indicated that they would do a true stucco cladding. Staff's main concern with that was partly that material, but also that there's no other stucco present on the house. A more appropriate cladding material might be siding matching what's in the gable ends. And then so we did recommend, I think, I don't have it in front of me at this moment, actually, either a continuance or an approval with a condition that that be revised and submitted to staff. Let me pull that one back up.
I think you have recommended a continuance.
Okay, so that was to address the cladding material. On the replacement of non-historic windows, the applicant has proposed the same replacement window as what was proposed in the addition, but we have different guidelines for windows within the historic structure versus windows in an addition. So the proposed simulated divided light window that's allowed in an addition is not allowed when you're replacing a window in the historic structure. They do have one historic window remaining in the historic building. The rest of them are later replacement windows that they intend to go back with a more historically appropriate window. But we recommended continuance of that as well to address the windows that don't meet the applicable guidelines.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So I, again, reviewed this particular, I'm sorry, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Greg Eichner, 809 Northwest 41st Street. I'm the homeowner.
Perfect, thank you, Greg. I reviewed this as well. My big issue is just the material used on the addition. I don't think stucco is appropriate, and
Well, there's stucco on the addition right now on the other side that's not visible. And we were trying to differentiate it from the main house. I mean, I'd love to do brick, but I didn't think that was acceptable. The part that's not visible is stucco.
the part that's not on the side
On the west side
of the addition or the house?
of the addition.
Okay.
It's so,
So I would imagine that was probably not an appropriate use of stucco at that particular point in time either. I would love to see it go back with something that's more appropriate. I don't know if brick is appropriate, but certainly some sort of wood siding. I think we can certainly get to an approval with conditions on that today if you're willing to get there.
Would brick be inappropriate?
I was about to say the same thing, because as long as it's differentiated, as long as we have some kind of clear demarcation between existing and
I mean, and
Yes.
this is not visible from the street. I thought we had a little more flexibility when it's not visible.
I believe there is some flexibility, but not necessarily with these particular materials.
So yes, brick is allowed for, and using brick when the house is brick is allowed on an addition. That's what we just approved at the case before this. They're using brick to match the existing house. And yes, we want to see that an addition is differentiated, but there are lots of different ways to do that. And I think just the form and the height of this existing sunroom as it stands differentiates that from the historic structure, so.
Would you be agreeable to changing it to brick?
I'm agreeable to anything. I don't care. The architect came up with the stucco to make it look more historically correct. He thought the stucco was a nice addition, and maybe it's because we had stucco on the side now. I think it was originally proposed with brick, but I thought, maybe I was wrong, but I thought that was not different enough.
I love stucco, but I think, yeah, whatever's there is not historic, so to me, it's kind of irrelevant that it is on the existing addition. But I don't have a problem with the remodel of the addition at all.
Yeah, just kind of a general comment on that. I hear a lot of confusion about that, about the differentiation and how much to differentiate and what materials and how to accomplish that. And so I think we see a lot of cases where, they read the guidelines or they understand it to be, it has to be like, 180 degrees different or something, and they use some totally different material that might actually, in some cases, might not fit the whole project as well. So yeah, I don't know if there's a way to clarify that in the future or in the guidelines or something, but I think I've seen a lot of confusion on that where, really there can be different ways, different subtle approaches to how to differentiate that. Even if it's brick, if it's the same plane,
Right.
doing a little relief or something, there's things you can do.
I agree.
So anyway, just a comment.
So what are we asking of the applicant? Are we asking him to
I think
modify this to?
I think it would be with the, an approval with the agreed upon condition that this stucco is not used and it is replaced with brick. That doesn't tackle the window issues, but.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll clear up the window. So if we're not talking about the windows for the addition and we're talking about the windows in the back of the house, the original thought was we have like the cheapest, worst builder grade metal, or I don't even know what they are, vinyl. They're terrible windows. We were going to replace some on the back while we were doing this, so it was consistent with the addition. But I really can't afford that anyway, so I'm glad to take those windows off the plate if that makes it easier.
I mean,
If you're
works for
not-
me.
Yeah, I'm not doing the windows anyway, so. I
Okay.
mean, I'll-
If you're not touching them,
So
so what do
we're
we need to do
just
to withdraw that?
striking item 2.
So, yeah, we will just note that item 2 has been withdrawn by the applicant, and then that would be a motion to approve with the condition that revised drawings illustrating brick instead of siding be submitted to staff.
Okay.
Comfortable with that?
Okay.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, do we have a motion?
Let me ask you a question. So if you all approve the first one, do we work with staff to get the brick approved, or how does that work?
Yeah, so you would provide staff with revised elevation drawings that show it with brick instead of the stucco, and with the specifications for the brick to show that it's going to match the house.
That it is
But-
going to match the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that'll just be between, email conversations between staff and you and your consultant contractor.
Okay.
Perfect. Do we have a motion?
Items 1 with the specific findings, I believe, as noted in the staff report, and a condition that the applicant submit revised drawings illustrating brick as the material for the addition. And do I not mention item 2, or do we?
You don't need to say anything for.
May I
yeah.
ask a question? I don't mean to interrupt your vote, but when it does get time to redo the windows and replace them so that they look historical, I know I was sent with this prop. I know this window is going in all the homes now. Is this not acceptable for replacing non-original windows? I mean, what kind of windows? I thought the Pella window with the non-true divided light, but not true divided light was acceptable.
So each district has kind of their own rules and guidelines and specifications on specific types of windows that can be utilized and can't be utilized. And then there's certain issues with, if there's an addition, certain windows can be used in it, but on the historic main structure, specific like kind windows need to be utilized. So I think it just depends on whichever district you're in, and there's many options.
Okay.
So, yeah, the guidelines are different for the windows within the historic structure and windows in an addition. I think we have seen over the years a handful of times a simulated divided light window get approved in the historic structure because of particular circumstances related to that property and to that window type and window design. But it would be something when you come back, what's best is to be able to compare your existing windows to whatever proposed replacement window you want to use so that we can see what's the best match for the remaining historic window that's in the house.
Clear as mud. Okay.
See you back sometime in the
Yeah,
future.
perfect. We'd love to have you back. All right, do we have a motion on this particular case?
We had
We
it.
have one. I'm sorry, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillips, second by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. All right,
Thank
that item
you.
was passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, HPCA 2200151 at 300 Northwest 15th Street. Is the applicant present?
This is located in Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Jake Blake, Emerson Blake, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace wood shake roof with clay tile designed to mimic shake shingles, elective. 2, replace painted metal dormer roofs with copper roofs, elective. And 3, replace existing modified bitumen entrance canopy roof with copper, elective. This is a wood shake roof that staff believes may have been a replacement for an earlier wood shingle roof, and the distinction is the rough versus smooth texture of shakes versus shingles. And they've proposed to replace it with a clay tile product that mimics the look of the shake shingles, and we do have a sample of the product available if you all want to see it. This isn't a product that's addressed by the guidelines one way or the other, so we spoke with the applicant and said it would need to come to the commission so you all could assess the compatibility of that. Staff's recommendation was that it was an equally compatible approximation of the wood roof as a composition shingle would be, and we allow composition shingles to replace a wood roof. So we did recommend approval on that. On the dormer roofs and the entrance canopy, we recommended continuance because there were some outstanding questions about the condition of those materials and about whether or not the existing materials were in fact copper, whether the existing the historic canopy roof would have in fact been copper. And the guidelines have some specific language about use of metal and copper roofs where they did or did not exist historically.
Thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Jeff Blake, Gomerson Blake at 1020 Northwest 81st, talking about 300 Northwest 15th.
Perfect, thank you. We actually I got to get my hands on this particular product that the applicant is going to use, and it is quite impressive. It looks great. I think it does mimic the wood shake style roof. In fact, I've got a wood shake style roof, and I kind of want this on my house. But
I have a question, though. What was the original roof?
In 2011, there was a wood roof that was approved by the commission.
What was the original roof?
So the Sanborn map says shingle, which typically indicates wood shingle. We did have comments from the neighborhood that they believed that it perhaps was slate at one time, but usually Sanborn maps would call that a non-combustible roof, and it doesn't say that. Now, Sanborn maps can be wrong, but just based on the evolution over time of the wood roof, we have reason to believe it would have been wood shingles historically.
My personal opinion on this product versus going back to like an asphalt shingle, I think that this actually looks more historically compatible and as opposed to an asphalt shingle. And
once again, that's the guidelines say if we were going to replace the roof, the entire roof, that anytime you replace it, an entire part, that you have to go back to the original material. That was why my question was that. So I think that, once again, we need to be careful when we say it's a great material and it looks good. It should be the unique circumstance. I agree with staff. If that's their research and it did say shingle, I'm in agreement. But I think that I'm just going back to, that's not what the guidelines say, that we should do it because it's a better material. We should do it because in this circumstance, it is unique. So is it not possible to go back to wood? Is that I don't know that much about wood roofs, so.
Unfortunately, I know more than I care to know about wood roofs at this point. They're extremely expensive. They're a fire danger too. Right. I saw this as an in-kind replacement almost because wood shake roofs are challenging.
So the guidelines do actually allow us to administratively approve replacing a wood roof with composition shingles. So that's why we said this is not a composition shingle, but it's not a product that the guidelines have addressed one way or the other. If you have a clay tile roof that's historic, or a metal roof, or if you did have a slate roof, we have very few of those, then the guidelines would say if you're replacing it, you have to go back with that historic material. But at some point in time, the guidelines were changed, well, it may have been that way forever. The guidelines allow wood roofs to be replaced with other materials. And it may well be because of those reasons.
I agree, and I
about
agree
fire.
with your findings on the roof.
Yeah,
I agree.
I have no problem with the roof whatsoever.
Talk to us about the use of copper in certain areas. What is that material now, and what have you guys found out about that?
What you're looking at in the photograph is, particularly on this dormer, that's copper that's been painted. It was kind of the quick fix silver roof paint, if you're familiar with this. That's why you may be tricked into thinking that's galv or some other steel metal, but that's copper up there, and it's just full life. Someone's painted it at some point to try to seal it up.
Do we think historically it would have been, originally it would have been unpainted copper?
That's my assumption.
Do we have any indication from Sanborn Maps or staff or anything else as to getting some clarity on that? I mean, if it is copper right now and nobody knows that it was ever something different, it's kind of hard for me not to assume it was just always copper.
I agree with the applicant. If you verified that it's copper, then I would say that, I would be in agreement that it would start out unpainted.
I'd also say from an architectural standpoint, the way that dormer is made, I don't know, that seems like a smart material to use for that, because it's this barrel, kind of half barrel thing. It seems like copper would have been reasonable roofing material.
Preponderance of evidence indicates that it is copper.
The
And
Sanborn
we're on
maps
the
don't usually
shingle
show
as
the,
well.
Did I use that properly?
I was just going to say, Sanborn maps don't give us the roof material on the dormer and the canopy. Sometimes it will on a larger porch roof, but it just says the overall roof material.
And I definitely concur on the shingle. I mean, if you're allowed to replace wood shingle with composite, then I don't see how we wouldn't approve this, definitely a superior product in composite shingle.
Yeah, I would be in favor of an approval of both items.
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? None. Okay.
So the third item is the entrance canopy that's currently not metal, that they want to go back with a copper roof.
Yeah,
Just to
talk
make
to
sure
us about
that's-
that piece too.
It's bitumen. I mean, there's
do you say
no, I think it's a bitumen
Okay.
product. There's no way that's original to the house. So if we can identify what was originally there, I mean, if you walk the neighborhood and you look at this style of architecture, copper seems to be the most historically appropriate replacement. That's what my client's pushing for, is to make this thing what it was. And so we feel like that's the right answer for that entry.
Seems appropriate to me.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of go back to the dormers. Like, I don't, without knowing something else, I don't know how you would say no to it.
I mean, if there was copper on the dormers
Yeah.
currently, and it seems like that would have been the appropriate material choice then, I'm
Sure.
assuming maybe it was copper there as well, maybe
would
at some
imagine.
point, so.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve HPCA 22-00151, items 1, 2, and 3 with, well, I guess with the unique circumstance noted in the staff report and the specific findings noted in the staff report.
And also,
Second.
oh,
Sorry.
you got it.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Please vote in Prime Gov. Okay, the item is
Thank you.
passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, HPCA 22-00154 at 504 Northwest 17th Street. Is the applicant present?
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Omar Cedillos Concrete for Eugene Wallace III for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace driveway, steps, and parking lot elective. This is an unusual property. The house is set quite far back from the street and has paving in front of it at the top of the yard where it flattens out at the top of the slope. And then the driveway that they propose to replace has a very narrow set of concrete steps built into the center of the driveway. I've not seen that anywhere else but here. Staff did recommend continuance on this largely in order to verify and address the condition and any work proposed to the retaining wall that's attached there to the driveway. It appears to have drainage that comes through that retaining wall out onto the driveway and out to the street, and it wasn't clear if that was going to be reconstructed or left in place as part of the proposed work.
Perfect. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my heart is beating real fast. Anyway, I'm not want to do this today. My brother died 3 days ago, so I'm,
Sorry to hear that.
you know, scared. And I'm Eugene Wallace III. I live in 504 Northwest 17th and
Perfect.
Walker.
So staff was curious about the retaining wall to the left and to my left in this picture. Are you guys doing anything with that? Is that staying in place? What's the
It's staying in place. I
staying in
believe.
place? And then what happens with the stairs? My understanding is they're being moved over to the right of the driveway. Is that
Yes, sir. We have different reasons why we want to move it because the AMSA, well, my 88-year-old daddy, I take care of him, and the AMSA was trying to come get, you know, and that's a hazard to him. And also I have some letters that people wrote in my behalf, and just try to do like a turnaround to come back because
Sure.
it's a threat to us coming up and down. He got over to the side. He has a gas meter and a air conditioning unit right there, and I did run into one time. And I also have
You know, as I read through the application, and the main concern we had was that I had was the retaining wall. I don't
We
see
also-
any,
So I also have a picture of,
oh, wow,
a friend of mine drove up on it.
Oh, no. That's no fun. I don't have any major concerns with the replacement of this driveway and at all. Do we have any other, are there any concerns from the commission's perspective?
I'll
Raise your
make a
hands.
motion to approve.
Driveway and wondered about it.
Let's see if there's any citizens that wish to. Say that again?
Oh, I've always wondered if that happened with the car.
Now you know.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, are there any citizens that wish to speak on this particular project? None. Do we have a motion?
I will motion to approve HPCA 22-00154, item 1.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Gordon.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Jordan.
So we had a recommendation to continue, so are there any other findings or revised findings that you want to attach to that motion? Or simply the standard finding for,
Just do the finding that they answer the question about the retaining walls
Yeah,
not
I
being
guess
touched.
just with with the knowledge that they've clarified the missing information in this report. I don't know, I don't want to reference the specific findings, I guess, because you've motioned for, or you've,
You can just say
Recommended.
finding instead of specific
Okay.
finding.
with the finding
That,
that,
and then whatever.
The retaining wall.
that the retaining wall is to remain as is.
Perfect.
Okay.
And Commissioner Corbin, do we get a second from you? Moved by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Corbin. Please vote in PrimeGov. Great news. It's passed unanimously, and hopefully nobody runs into your retaining wall or any more air conditioning system anymore.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move on to item number 6, HPCA 22-00155 at 212 Northwest 32nd Street.
I'll know real quick that I need to recuse myself as I'm part of the project team, so.
Perfect.
So.
Commissioner Rhonda Phillip will be recusing himself on this particular case.
this is located in Edgemere Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Brent Wall, Lodge Studio, for Zachary Dean Duty for Certificate of Appropriateness 2. I'm not going to read all 15 items, but to remodel and renovate largely the rear yard of the property, and to demolish a garage and construct a new garage. I guess I should note those separately.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Brent Wall, 220 Northwest 13th, Suite 1.
Thank you, Brent.
So thanks for having us today. Nice to see all of you here. This is our kind of first post-Zoom period appearance here on the Horseshoe, so it's good to actually be here in person. So as we get going here, I just wanted to let you know that, this composition of the commission, we haven't been before today. So, we, as a firm and as a person, we have great respect for what you do, as, in your time and your commitment to HP. So just know that everything that we try to bring before you has been thoughtfully created and, as respectful as possible. So as we kind of work through this, just wanted to let you all know that, and I'm not trying to pander to you. I'm trying to be sincere that that we try to approach this very seriously, and we absolutely have respect for all the work and the time that you all put into this. So as we kind of go through here, so.
And I'll just add that Brent serves on one of our other design review committees, so he knows
The
shared
pain.
experience.
The pain and agony that we go through every month.
So we know the time that it takes, and we know the commitment that staff has to making sure that this is all organized and clear. So as we noted, there's quite a few items on the list. Klaus has come down. He has a significant portion of this. The owner is here with us today as well. So, our goal is to kind of work through this and hear any concerns that you have, and, try to walk out of here today with a really good, clear plan moving forward. So the house is located in Edgemere. These lots are small over there. We're trying to kind of insert some amenities into the lot as kind of carefully and thoughtfully as we can. There's some modifications to the home that Klaus can speak to. There's some modifications to the garage. You know, the first case you had today was, you know, interesting because there is sort of a philosophical thought process that has to go through here. Every site is different, every house is different, and so that's why we do these individual considerations to kind of work through. In this case, you know, we're kind of starting a little bit behind the 8 ball where we're already, you know, starting off with a lot coverage that is over, you know, the apparent limit. You know, I thought the first conversation was really interesting because, you know, people that take these homes on and we want them to be preserved, and they're expensive to maintain, and you know, you want to be able to have a place that you can put down roots and settle in, and that includes having some amenities where you can spend some time outside. And so how do we do that in a way that is thoughtful and respectful and trying to make sure that we're following all the guidelines? And so it's, you know, this is a typical case that's extremely challenging and trying to hit all those markers. So, you know, what we've done is, you know, kind of the back porch coming off, we've tried to mimic the front porch of the house. That is kind of our process, is we want to make that new piece feel appropriate and that it could have been built with the house whenever it was originally constructed. Now, the only way that we can do that and make it distinct and set apart is we know that we can't match the brick exactly. We can do jointing between the brick of the new addition and the existing house to show that that is clearly an addition. And so those are the kinds of things that we've tried to do. The alternative is to do a wood deck or something like that, and you know, and our client really wants to have a higher end feel for what they're trying to do. So that is really the thought process behind that. The pool that we've proposed, we've tried to get the smallest pool that we possibly could that actually had some sort of value to it, where you can get into it and kind of move around and, you know, do something. The cabana is a pretty small footprint. We have a 10-foot easement in the back, so we're right up on that, and we're trying to use that easement to have a little dining room area and a little kind of cook area back there. And so the thought process on using decomposed granite, that is a permeable surface, that is a surface that can hold and kind of collect some water during a rain event. We've tried to keep a strip of grass in there so that it's not, you know, the whole backyard is not completely paved. We've tried to create fencing that is made out of masonry with steel gates. And so everything we've tried to do is tried to be, you know, really nice, high quality character of the materials that fits the house. So on the landscape side of things, that I can say that is how we've tried to do that and tried to weave this kind of new piece into the existing house. Klaus has kind of he's working on the garage in the house and is plugging into us on the cabana. So if there's any specific questions about those, feel free to, and he'll come up and can address those. But we definitely are here to answer any questions that you have and try to get this thing moved on.
I'm gonna just jump in real quick too. Klaus Ryman Phillip, 2801 North Hudson. But this, you know, Zach and Ian approached me probably like a year and a half ago or something, when he had first purchased the house, to look at, you know, really the house itself has some awkward spaces. A lot of these old houses, as you know, function has changed, or the way we live has changed. So, for example, on the back, on that, I guess, south facade, there are no doors leading out to the backyard. And then there's also a question of, like, what do you do when you get out to the backyard? If it's just an expanse of grass, it's not really, conductive to outdoor living, maybe. And originally the plan had been to do an addition on the back of the house. We were gonna add, basically a bedroom and a bathroom onto the house to kind of make the house more usable. And as we started talking about, how do they live? What do they want out of their outdoor space? We realized that there's interest in maintaining kind of an open space in the backyard, making it really functional for them. And so we kind of pivoted to building out the attic instead. So there's an opportunity, the way the house is designed with the steep roof pitches, there's a lot of room up in the attic. So with really a pretty minimally visible dormer, we could basically update the upstairs to kind of turn it into all the extra living space that we would have done with an addition. And instead of doing an addition, that kind of theoretically, hopefully, allowed us to, make the outdoor space more suitable for them. So anyway, I just wanted to add that it's kind of gone through a couple different iterations, and initially we had a addition planned for the back, but we didn't want to sacrifice, other improvements to the backyard, so we kind of pivoted to an attic build-out.
Okay, well, this is a huge submission, so I'm going to just kind of pick a little starting point in here. I think reading through the report and trying to figure it all out, like it's clear that we need some clarity on the excavation and the regrading of the backyard, because I think it's going on to the other items is a little irrelevant until we get through that. So talk to us about potential grading changes and excavation of the site.
Yeah, that item was, reading through the staff report was, I wasn't really expecting to see that language. We did not specifically list regrading or excavation as an item. Clearly, if you're going to be constructing a swimming pool, you're going to have big equipment in the backyard and you're going to dig a hole for the tank. So, as far as we're not really proposing to move the existing surface up or down from where it is. I mean, grade-wise, we're still pretty much where we are.
I think what raised that red flag was the increase in height on the retaining wall from 6 inches to 3 feet.
On the east side here.
Let me dig through it and find it. I don't know.
Yeah, here's
an
image.
A lot of pages, Brent.
Yeah, so on that east side, we were, the existing grade on the other side is not 3 feet.
Okay.
It was mostly just the scale of the bottom, the base of the fence to the top of the fence, trying to make sure that those felt, since we're going with the retaining wall, feeling like the bottom had a nice base that was in scale with the top. So that's why it's a little bit higher, if that makes sense.
So you're not actually going to be digging out 3 feet of dirt to move to elsewhere? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
That's helpful.
That's extremely helpful.
Is it just
Yeah,
to,
just-
sorry,
oh,
just to clarify, so it's not actually retaining something? It's just,
There's a little bit of grade change on that east side, but it's not 24 or 30 inches of grade change, but there is a little bit over there.
okay. Yes, that was, I think, staff's kind of what caught our eye and was a concern.
Okay.
You can kind of see there's an existing, there's like an existing concrete, curb essentially there. But yeah, it's not quite that same difference.
Can we talk about lot coverage? Because I know there's a lot of numbers in here. I don't know if there's a finite percentage listed. And also, I just had this is maybe not super relevant, but in your submission, it lists the pool as 8 by 26, and in the staff report, it listed as 6 by 24. So if we're really like getting down to the nuts and bolts of how many feet we're taking up, I'd kind of like to get clarity.
Okay, so.
Katie, staff listed 65.5%. Is that what staff calculated?
Yeah.
Is that what you calculated?
Yes, that's
I mean,
what,
you calculated, is it what you all calculated, that the end result was 65.5% lot coverage?
To be honest, I would need to see that page of our submission to verify that, right?
You didn't put it in there, I'm saying staff calculated, it included in their staff report. Do you know?
We submitted a site plan that listed all of the pervious and impervious surfaces. I'm just not sure if that made it to you or not.
And so, Katie, in the staff report, it says you need additional information to provide revision to the site plan that illustrates lot coverage as defined in the ordinance. Are you asking for something that they haven't done?
so I'm going to let Angela speak to that exact wording.
Oh, sir.
I'm not certain. There were lots of calculations on that page, and I am unclear as to whether or not my final calculations would match theirs. I just don't know for
Right.
sure.
I would say that we might need to continue continue the application until staff and the applicant agree on the lot coverage numbers.
Okay.
Is there parts of this, like demolishing the garage, that we could potentially approve today? I mean, I know.
I mean, I'd be okay with that. I'm just saying, if that's the thing that
Yeah.
we're making decisions based on, then we
Oh, I
really.
don't know that it is. I just thought it was a decent starting point. I mean, you've
I
got
would
to start
agree.
somewhere.
I tend to agree with
I
Jill
mean,
on
I
that
think from what staff said in the report, that there needs to be an agreement on that before we, and I don't think it's going to be something we can do here.
No, I think the lot coverage is going to be really important on this one. There's a
Although
lot
I don't-
going on. I mean, it's gorgeous, there's a lot going on here, but we really need to know what that number is, because then the other thing that is my immediate question is, what is the unique circumstance at this property that,
I mean, I'm not opposed
Over.
necessarily to the 65.5 because we've done some lately that to accommodate people with pools and other projects that were that much. So I'm not saying I'm in disagreement with that. I'm just saying that staff is concerned about it, and since it's critical to the total design, it seems like that would be a place to know where we're at.
Sure.
I tend to agree with Commissioner
I'm not
Mitchell.
opposed to
Yeah.
doing a demolition of the garage. I mean, if you think everybody thinks that in the end, we can come to a meeting of the minds. I'm just saying.
May I
that
ask a
one figure.
question really quickly? Did everybody get the impervious surface plan in their package? I see it, but I.
Does it say what page that is?
It's on
Actually
page
cannot read it.
15 of the PDF.
I can't read this, it's so small. But this, this is a large document. It's 24 by 36 sheet. I know it's big, but.
I think the challenge with this is I don't know what that
Blind thing.
percentage
You cannot see.
truly
You
is
can't-
by just
you
looking at
can't
that
read.
impervious surfaces
Okay.
area. And because it is so full, in my opinion, I do think we need to have kind of the exact calculation on lot coverage. I mean, there's a bunch of different features here, which are all awesome. And individually, I think, yeah, we can get that, we can push that through, but with them all being combined together, it does create quite a large project, quite a lot of objects that need to be considered in this. And my concern is just the total lot coverage that's there, and is there enough room to actually fill it all?
It does provide the square footage of the impervious in there, so it's just hard to read. It's like
3805.
3805 for the existing and maybe 658 or something.
I think it's all in here. I just think it would take
So
us working
hard to-
through it
yeah.
to piece it all together. I just hate
it's
to,
terribly blurry.
I don't want to waste
okay.
people's
I just
time,
understand.
especially when someone is hiring 2 architects. I'd like to at least try to plow through a little bit of this and provide feedback so that, for instance, for me, the height of the cabana is a little aggressive.
Agreed.
I don't want to send you all away without saying that, and then you come back and you've wasted a continuance, and I say it then. So I would
No, I
personally
appreciate that.
like
The
to
more
work
things we
through
can
a
kind of
little.
work through, so we only have a set number of continuances, so
Right.
more improvements we can make.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty sure this would be continued, this first go around anyway. So yeah, any kind of feedback we can get
Sure.
on everything would be good.
Can we jump back to my question about the pool size? Because that is, I mean, if we're really trying to figure out square footage, that's 60 square feet that's potentially going the wrong way.
Well, I'll say, I mean, we were right. It seems like, and Brent knows this better than I do because he's kind of been tackling the site design. I've kind of been more focused on the house. But it seems like we were already close to the 50% to begin with. And if you just look at it, I know that this isn't that's not a technical way of looking at it, but I mean, there's a lot of yard there, and with the front yard, I guess, I don't know, is there any way that we could, some kind of guidance to give, maybe if we just have a better graphic to show what's impervious versus paved, and I know the pool, of course, adds a wrinkle, because anytime anyone adds a pool, that's always, a chunk of impervious,
I mean, let me be
impervious
clear, I
area.
don't really have any objections to the
Yeah.
design or
Yeah.
to the amount of square footage. But if you're going to be held to that, or maybe that could be a condition, that if it's between this and that, do you think that it's
I
going
guess
to be
my
over?
my comment is if we're already close to maybe what that 50%
See-
is, theoretically, we couldn't do maybe much of anything. But, yeah, I think, yeah, I guess maybe I'm hoping that we can look at it as a whole, you know, the design as a whole, I don't know.
I'll just note that we have several items that don't have an impact on lot coverage that are recommended for approval. The fencing, window replacement, the dormer construction, and the demolition of the garage. Well, obviously, the demolition of the garage removes a structure that they then want to replace, but I think the commission could consider each of those items regardless of any lot coverage questions, and then yes, hopefully at a minimum, provide the applicant feedback on design components, any other concerns, if it's going to be a continuance for the other items.
I guess I don't have any major issues with some of the other, features on the house, the demolition of the garage, the construction of the garage, the dormers, all of that. My big concern is just the lot coverage of everything else coming out. What does that calculation look like at the end of the day? So I can certainly support approvals on most of the items with the exception of kind of that yard area. How does the rest of the commission feel about?
Klaus, is your question on the ground coverage, you said you're already going to be at 50%, so are you saying since we're already over there, does it matter if it's 60% or 70% or 50% to move forward with the conversation?
No, I guess I was kind of saying, you know, you can kind of look at each element individually, and maybe I was just saying maybe we look at the site design as a kind of a holistic approach, and I know that Brent has taken a lot of pains, like we've taken a lot of pains to try to reduce the impervious area as much as possible by not having the addition on the back of the house, by making the pool as small as possible, by using materials that are pervious, technically versus just like hard paving a big, pool deck around it or something. So I guess all I'm saying is I guess we've taken a lot of concrete steps to make it as permeable and to reduce lot coverage as much as we could while still meeting the goals of the client, essentially.
Yeah.
I guess.
If we were to say it's too full, what would you take out? Or maybe that's a question. Maybe that's a question for
like,
you.
do we need
Well,
to
that's
start
difficult to say because I feel like,
I don't think that it's too full if you're at 65 and a half. Because I think the pools create kind of an issue. Because we had another pool in another, I don't know if it was Edgemere or whatever, with the big wall on the side that was incorporated into a fountain and all of that. And eventually we agreed on that one. And I think the lot coverage was fairly high. And the unique circumstance was the size of the lot.
Well, and I didn't want to bring in like previous projects because, we always talk about, we always talk about precedent,
Don't you do it.
But I know.
I'm just saying that the size of the lot was the unique circumstance in that case.
For me, it really is the height of the cabana that's making it feel crowded.
Honestly, I think that's something we can definitely address. We figured that might be a comment.
That would be my feedback, is that the height and the, it's very permanent looking. It's nice, but it feels
No, there's a
heavy.
hierarchy between the house is the main element, then
Right.
you have the garage, and then theoretically you have the cabana. And I recognize that the cabana is
It feels a
kinda
little
large and short,
competitive.
so yeah.
Do you have
Very pretty, but
Do you
competitive.
have a site, do you have an elevation of from the front of the house
line
to
of
the
sight.
back to kind of show how that
think
fits
it's-
in?
No, I could do a site section, if that's
Right.
where kind of, so you can kind of see
Then
like
you
the
could
house.
see how
and then
big
yeah.
the cabana was
Let me
in
make a note. That's a
relationship
good
to the
idea. I'll do
house
that.
and maybe to the other garages.
Is that not
I presume you won't be able to see the cabana from the front of the house?
No,
Back door.
you won't.
No.
No, the,
think-
the
well, I think-
overall height
It's
is
the
lower
renderings.
already, and it's behind.
But it's an
But I do understand, because I think it is higher than the garage, I think, maybe.
Where,
I don't
it-
know.
is Katie, is the garage, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding the garage to be approved. What, where is it?
See, look at this one.
I mean, no, where's the picture of it, the drawing?
I am actually, my pages all say page load failed, retry. I'm having a hard time getting the documents to open.
I thought there was one that
There's
showed
a
like parallel.
page that shows like an existing and a
Oh,
proposed
here,
site
these are
plan.
not in my, these, I couldn't find these online. The drawing, section G. Does anybody else have that?
I saw.
You saw it at one time?
Section.
You have seen it, yeah, that's,
What are we looking for within
it's the one where it has all of the pictures of the,
That might be, it's at the very, very bottom.
Yeah, I think it's attachment 1, and then page.
I never did.
All the way at the bottom.
No.
I missed it.
So, I mean, so I'm looking at the garage, and that would be, I mean, I would be in favor of doing, demolition of the, it sounds like we're down to the height of the pool cabana, unless there's other questions. That would be me.
We went off of the extensive, sorry, I was reading something. The extensive yard work, right? Like there's extensive retaining wall. We're
Yeah, it became a non-issue.
not
They
an
weren't-
issue. Okay, so 1, 2, and 3 seem like that's probably okay, right?
Right.
Let's see.
Sorry. Am I on
So
stuff?
the height of the cabana is 22,
Yeah, I think I have a section or
I would say 1, 2, 3,
elevation
4.
with that. Let me
and the height of the house,
5, 6,
It's 20?
7, 8.
is not on
22.
here.
It's almost like 1 through 8 can be approved. Plus 10, plus 11,
The height of the garage
but 9. Yeah.
is.
So the height of the roof of the cabana is, the ridge of the roof is 19 feet, 9 inches, but then if you add the chimney, it's 22. So the top of the chimney is around 22 feet.
And what did you say the peak of the roof was?
The peak of the roof of the cabana is 19 foot, 9 inches.
And the peak of the house,
Peak of the house is 23? Does that sound right? I can't really read my number. 23
23.
feet.
and the peak of the garage.
I just realized I did not put that on there, so I will update that.
Yeah, I think,
Full disclosure, I think the peak of the garage is probably lower than the cabana, but I'm not sure what
Is
that
what?
number is, but
it's probably lower than the cabana.
Lower
I
than
think
the
it may
cabana.
be, because it's a
I'm
lower
pretty
roof pitch.
sure.
Yeah, I mean.
But I can
think
provide that to
Without
staff
knowing the
from-
garage height, there is a height to state. My feedback would be that for me, that was the element making it feel crowded and the thing that was making it really obvious that we were way encroaching on the ideal lot coverage. So for me, coming back with, a shorter, less imposing cabana, as well as the garage height would be what I don't know that there's a magic number for me about like, yes, that's how tall the cabana should be, but
Can I speak to the impervious surfaces real quick? Again, we did all the math. Unfortunately, you just can't read it, which,
What page do you have on there?
well, there are not any, there's
Nope.
not numbers on here. So it's right after the pretty pictures part. if That makes
Okay.
sense. You can find it, but you're not going to be able to read these numbers, so I will
Oh,
read
because
them
it's
to
too
you.
small.
So
Might be able to zoom in on the, because it's a
Yeah, you can.
computer, you can zoom in.
You could read them.
yeah, we have like the
Okay.
little,
So your total lot square footage right now is 7,294, okay? The existing amount of impervious surface right now is 3,805, and we are proposing to add 668 square feet.
You're
So when you
proposing,
do
I'm
the
sorry,
math, that's 62% lot coverage.
62%.
Yeah.
60.
It seems that adding a pool almost always puts you close to that number. So I don't think that's a ridiculous amount of lot coverage to be considered.
No, I think I can get there too. I mean, I think just the height of the cabana, it sounds like.
I think for the dormer, staff recommended just needing some additional information on materials and details maybe. Is that correct?
Yeah, the dormer, I think was
Specific.
recommended for approval. Sorry. Sorry, guys. sorry, let me scroll back up to what that one said. Recommended approval with conditions of fully dimensioned drawings and complete material choices, just needs some elaboration on the documentation. We did recommend a continuance on construction of the garage. That I think is the only other main item that wasn't.
Yeah, I think we almost have to continue that without the height if we're debating the appropriate height for the cabana.
Yeah, I can add, and I didn't have the height of the garage on here either, so we can just update that information, and I'll provide some alternate cabana designs,
Okay.
and we can just bring that back next time. So
Something that's just not so aggressive.
So do you want to just continue all of it? Or is there
I think
parts
we-
you want to
I mean, I
approve
think you
today?
can get started on a lot of it.
It might be nice to, at the very minimum, approve the demolition of the garage, just because that's something that they could easily move on, because it is, I mean, it's.
I know,
it's
I'd
some-
take your approval and move on.
But
Like,
I was, yeah. if we
talking
can-
about like 13 items of approval
Honestly, it
here.
would make this easier next time.
It will, absolutely.
Yes,
and
it absolutely
We've
does.
discussed it now. We should approve these today so we don't have to revisit all this again.
Yeah, I agree. I would be in favor of approving all but items 9 and 11.
I agree.
I can get there.
And then your specific findings.
You have to change the specific findings for items 1, 2, and 3.
Who wants to tackle this motion?
Or for,
Klaus, come back up here and make this motion.
I'll go ahead.
I apologize for
Do
the.
it, Joe. You've been
size
out
of
of town. This is yours.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve HPCA 220015 items. Let's see. Well, there's some specific findings that are not in agreement. Let's see. Items 1, 2, and 3 that don't match on the other items. So, items. What do, okay. The landscape items, okay, all of those.
I think it's 1, 2, and 3 that the finding was that it won't be substantially regraded.
Oh, okay, here it is, continue. Okay, so to approve those, we would need to, do we have to have findings on that, Katie?
You have to have
Findings that, okay, that, okay. That the hardscape features include paving, stones, pavers, gravels, brick, rock pools, and fountains, and that the landscape features are located where not visible in the backyard, that meet all applicable guidelines, do not require review unless a permit is required. And can those two be the findings?
That there's not going to be substantial grading
Oh,
and
and that
excavation on the site.
extensive grading, filling, and excavation is not required with the exception of the pool. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Demolish the dormer, item 4. There. Gotta the dormers.
It's sort of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 with the
Oh.
findings noted in the staff report.
Specific findings. Well, it would be the dormer with the specific findings in the staff report and the condition that the fully dimensioned drawings and complete are submitted to staff. Okay, that's the dormer. To approve item 5, replace the set of 3 windows, which is, why don't they, which is 5. Anybody, what number is 5?
I think that's
Oh,
just
number
with the
2.
specific findings.
With the specific findings and the condition that the applicant provide dimensions and materials as noted in the staff report, and that's number 5. Construct the rear patio, which is number 6. with the specific findings noted in the staff report, and to provide additional information, to revise the proposal to provide differentiation from the historic structure and establish as a secondary feature, and revision the site plan that illustrates the lot coverage as defined in the ordinance with the installation of each structure as defined in the ordinance. That one is all under number 6, construct the back porch patio, and 7. So that's 6 and 7. 8 is, I don't understand. When it's long like this, is it item which one? 8.
8 is item 4 with the dormer.
Okay. Item 4 is approved with the specific findings noted in the staff report. Number 10, with the specific findings is noted in the staff report. And are there any conditions on 12, 13, 14, or 15?
Did you do 8?
Yeah.
I think 15 was just the documentation of the lighting be submitted to staff for approval.
Okay, so 8, 12, 13, 14, and 15 with the, unless Katie notes it, with the findings from the staff report in any conditions noted by the staff, which would generally refer to additional drawings or clarifying materials. So that's the motion for everything except for 9 and 11.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov.
I think if that became. How do you get back?
Not sure I got everything.
It's not up there. See, something I kicked up. I don't know. Go back.
So did you get one of those?
Everybody hit their button?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
All right. That item was passed.
Okay.
7-1 with 1 abstaining,
Okay,
recusing himself.
need to make a motion for HPCA 2200155, items 9 and 11 to be continued to the next meeting.
Yeah, those are both architectural. I think I can respond to that pretty quickly. We would need information back.
The meeting, next
It'd be
meeting,
December 7th,
December 7th meeting.
so you'd have to have it in by next Tuesday.
Yeah, I think that's possible.
Okay.
Second.
Oh, I'll second
Okay.
it.
Moved by Commissioner Meacham, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, that item passed as well, 7-1, with one abstaining.
Did you get all of them?
We are going to invite Mr. Commissioner Raymond Phillip back to the horseshoe to finish out the meeting. Let's see. I'm showing no other business under item 7. Communication and reports, we had 10 under the administrative approval section. Do we need to do anything with that?
Those are just for your information.
All right. We had no withdrawals, no closings, nothing from City Council, nothing from the Board of Adjustment, nothing from the Planning Commission. Rita, anything from the Municipal Counselor's Office? Negative. All right. Our next, Commissioners, any items you wish to discuss? Nothing. All right. Are there any citizens that wish to be heard? Negative. We will, let's see, the next regularly scheduled meeting date for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 7th at 2 p.m. in City Council's chambers. New applications for this meeting were received October 4th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, November 8th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 14th from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. Any items? So let's see. Any items from commissioners? No citizens? Meeting is adjourned.